AFC, which is to engage the elected element of the council to determine what are our priorities
Yeah.
and have that as the overriding priorities. And then even if central government wants to add stuff to it, I'm sure they we will not oppose it, but come to the table. Let us have a collective and let us negotiate with a better governance approach, which involves the national, the regional, and local government, and of course with other stakeholders, and let us move in a more, in a manner that is decent and one that shows respect for everyone. And
Mm-hmm.
so there is a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we will continue to make representation and speak out when we experience these, um, you know, unlawful acts
Mm-hmm.
and the attention of the public and the international community.
What I will ask as well, with all that has happened in this regard, are there any steps that you have taken or are taking, plan to take, that you want to share with us in this regard?
So one of the things, we will continue to educate and to agitate. We will
Mm-hmm.
inform all of those who we interact with, whether it's at the international level, whether it's in groups, and of course, we will engage our lawyers. In fact, we have already engaged our lawyers for them to provide the necessary advice on how we can deal with matters of this nature.
Yeah. Well, I think that's definitely a good step, because at some point there has to be a stop into this. And if it starts at Region 10, so be it. And that's why I always love Region 10. The people of Region 10 are very resilient. They're always ready to, stand up for what they see and what they think is right. And, I'm happy to know that you're making these moves.
Yeah.
With that being said, I know persons who have been following, of course, like I said, over for the last couple of weeks, persons who have been following. There are a lot of things happening in Linden. We saw a protest, I think it was last week, after the gentleman from Bosai had that unfortunate accident, and the residents, family members and friends, they went out to protest to ensure that he was found. um what are the updates with that? Has the labor ministry visited? What's happening in that regard?
So let me just once again, of course, express on behalf of the Regional Democratic Council that the entire Region 10, we mourn with the relatives
Mhm.
and of not only Mr. Uh, Hercules,
Hercules.
several other Londoners who lost their lives, popular people over the
Yes.
course of a few days. And
Yes.
so our heartfelt condolences to the families and, of course, their loved ones. In the case of Mr. Hercules, who
Mhm.
has been found, of course, he's dead.
Mhm.
We will continue to um, keep the family in our thoughts and prayers.
Mhm.
Um, I want to say that while the RDC welcomes investment in our region and we value the economic benefits for our residents presented by these endeavors, every company operating in Region 10 must be held to a high standard
Mhm.
with respect to the caring for the welfare and the occupational safety and
Mhm.
health of its employees. It's unfortunate what happened there at Bosai, and one of the things that we have asked, um, we are very concerned that with all the reports that and the coverage that this incident would have received, we are yet to be informed via the media on what are the standard procedures for rescue in mining incidents that occurred, such as the one in case of Mr. Hercules. In terms of from a preventative perspective that is. The people need to understand what are the safety protocols that are in place in checking the safety and projected risk when attempting to mine in high-risk area. Clearly, Mr. Hercules' position is an unfortunate one. Next month, as you know, we will be celebrating the month of April. It will mark the observance of occupational safety and health.
Health and safety. Mm-hmm.
And so we call for a renewal of emphasis on the observance of all the safety and healthy regulations in the workplace. And I do hope that the ministry will get down to business, that they will have their workers going into these various environments, in these private businesses particularly, and ensure that they're following. We have been getting several reports, and so we need to ensure that these procedures and these protocols are followed. Someone must be made accountable, and systems must be put in place to prevent reoccurrence as we work towards safeguarding our most precious resource here in Region 10, which is our people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, I do believe that is something that is particularly necessary in those fields. I would have asked, I don't know if at any point did the Labor Minister or any team from Labor went in to, talk with the company heads in this regard. Are you aware of anything of that nature?
I would have seen images of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Public Works meeting with the family, as well as principals from both sides, but I have not seen images of the Minister of Labor. Maybe that missed me, but I can't recall seeing him here in the region. I think he held a press conference virtually, but I can't recall seeing him here. But our thoughts and prayers remain with the family of Mr. Hercules, and we will give them the support. In cases like this, I want to call for more resources to be made available. I think in my press statement, I would have mentioned that in 2005, the RDC would have been, at the time, resources were made available, while we would have seen many of the same resources that should have been provided now being cut. But there was the 2005 flood, and the Disaster and Preparedness Committee would have organized at the time. And so we want a return to the capabilities that saw us successfully rescuing over 3,000 Guyanese from the coastland during the 2005 floods through the use of a strong and well-trained regional structure. And once we are given the resources by central government, I believe, just as was the case in 2005, we were able to help people. We would have been able and can respond in a more positive way to those who are affected by disasters, etc.
Correct. There has been, as you talked about, still on what has been happening in Region 10 on a very sad note as well, and you did make mention to this just now. We have seen there were some accidents on that roadway, which of course took the life of some Lindeners, who again, we do sympathize with their families. I have traveled to Linden maybe a month or so ago, and the condition of the road has really deteriorated in that sense. And I know part of that, of course, is Region 4, and of course, the smaller portion being in your region, Region 10. Has there been any talks in terms of dealing with that, the issue of fixing the roads? And I think a part of what I would have noted, particularly those areas where you had a lot of sand pits just coming out to the blues, you find those areas in particular, you have really, really bad issues in terms of how the road is. What are the plans for that?
So thank you for that question. And let me just remind our viewers that it was under the APNU AFC where a feasibility study was done under David Patterson. And we would have seen that study being completed. I can't remember the name of the company, KRSN, I think it was. And we held consultations with them at the Linden Mayor and Town Council back then. And so resources were made available. The feasibility study was completed. One has to ask themselves the question, why after 3 years we have not seen that being implemented, where the study that was completed for a new bridge across the Demerara River here at Mackenzie and Wismar, as well as for the upgrading of the Linden-Suzaik Highway. Many of you recall that we have been battling with not only the Linden-Suzaik Highway, but David Patterson articulated the challenges that that he had when the government, the present government, indicated that had they won power, once they got into power, they were not interested in constructing even the Linden to Letem Road, and it was the UK who intervened and said, well, if you're not going to fund it, then we are not going to release the payment. And so they were forced, of course, to start that road. Getting back to the Linden-Suzaik Highway, we have to ask ourselves that under the APNU AFC, we saw them doing the study. They started to put lights on the highway because they understood then, as we still do today, that Region 10 is well positioned geographically to become a major center for business and finance. These report that the upgrading of the Linden-Suzaik Highway and the new bridge across the Demerara River here in Linden could help to propel Region 10 into becoming a real powerhouse region. So what is causing the delay? Only God in heavens know. But we have seen them boasting of this biggest budget. Yet we have not seen the attention paid to other regions being paid to the heartland, to the interior, Region 10, where all the big lumber trucks pass through. And so all once again for emphasis to be placed, for funding to be made available so that the Linden-Suzaik Highway, the lighting up that started under the APNU AFC can continue, and the that was completed, that they can expeditiously move ahead to ensure that that surface, the road is resurfaced. I believe the increased activity that is expected with the upgrading of the Linden to Brazil Road and even the upgrading of the Linden-Suzaik Highway once it is completed will definitely see an increase in activity and more so cash flow coming into our region. So once again, we renew the calls for the government to expeditiously take steps to complete this most important highway to the benefit of all the people of Region 10 and the wider the other regions.
You made mention a bit earlier in our discussion that you were here on the program when you were doing budget consultations with your region, ensuring that you spoke to the persons within the communities, the villages in that region to come up with a budget that will see the needs of that community being met. And you had appeared on the show, you gave an outline about, a lot of the issues that were raised and what persons in Region 10 were looking forward to. Now that, this biggest budget ever, over $700 billion was passed with all the oil revenues being there, I heard you made mention that your budget was merely increased by 80,000 Guyana dollars, 400 US dollars, basically. And, I want to understand what position now, or what's the position with the region now with those projects that you would have discussed with residents and the way forward.
So let me just bring clarity. The budget that I was speaking to earlier that got the increase of just 80,000 is specific to the line item 6291 national and other events, where to host Mashramani
and any other events of that nature.
So that is what was increased. That specific line item was increased by $80,000. But in
Okay.
terms of the general budget, capital and current, as you know, we have indicated to our constituents that the budget flows from the consultation we would have had with our people on the ground.
Right.
While some aspects of the budget were approved, there are certain critical capital projects that have not received the blessings of central government. I speak here of one, the admin building. The building that we're currently in has been compromised. It was failed by the fire department. If you see the boardroom that we currently hold our meetings in, that the president's photo hangs up, the wall that it hangs up is falling apart, the flooring is rotten. And so we had proposed and asked for 660 million. That was the only capital project on the admin and finance to be considered for the new building that started under the coalition at Spikeland to be continued. Clearly, the government did not honor it, and they removed it from the budget. They asked that the admin staff remove it, and so we are forced to operate in a building that is unsafe, where documents and paraphernalia and other stuff for schools and so on that are stored in the stores department continue to get damaged because we have a building that is leaking. And we have other instances where electrical wires are exposed, sewage is backing up into the accounts department. And I asked the question, government treat the people who are in its direct employ in such manner and expect to get the best results. But clearly, we are not happy with the many changes that have been made to the budget. We have seen that we had proposed for several grounds to be upgraded. I would have spoken of the need. The Minister of Finance would have said that the synthetic track at Linden was completed. Clearly, that was not
done.
That was not the case, and they are now trying to complete it. And so some of the fields that we had asked to be upgraded, because as you know, Region 10, we said, is the talent basket for the country. There is no facility currently for our athletes to train. Emmanuel Archibald and several others have to be running along the Linden-Suzaik Highway, which is not safe for them. And so we had asked for, while you are going to be upgrading the sports club ground and the synthetic track is incomplete, that resources be made available to upgrade the ground that retrieves where the premier school in Linden, Kenzie High School, the students will be given an opportunity, as well as the wider community, to be able to visit there. In the area of infrastructure, the roads that the council would have submitted, at least 3 roads were removed, and they would have identified roads in what they believe they have some supporters. And so they clearly went against the direct wishes of the council and would have changed the roads that we would have allocated in place, like Amelia's Ward and Watuka, Central Mackenzie and other areas. And they have identified 2 specific roads that speak to some of the folks that are sympathetic to them, which is unfortunate. The Bamia Primary School is still of concern to us. 300 million was allocated and an experienced contractor got it. And they have received over 100 and something million, and they can't complete the first floors yet. This year, they will receive another 268 million. But I believe that based on the many issues that project is experiencing, that we are likely going to see that project falling by the wayside, like the many other projects that you might have been hearing about over the years, like the fiber optic project, the scaled-down packaging plant, the one laptop per family project, all of the other projects that you would have seen fail. I believe very soon they may pull the plug on the Bamia project, because as was warned, and had they listened, awarding such a project of that magnitude to an incompetent and an inexperienced contractor, we would have not been in this unfortunate situation.
I had that issue as one of my questions. I wanted you to zero into what I want you to allow my viewers to understand, because I believe that contract that was given was for about 600 and something
$300
and something million. And was what I want to understand whether that money, all of that money was allocated, the project started, then it stalled. And are the money that you're talking about now, the 268 million, is this additional or this is part of that money?
This is part of the original contract sum.
Okay.
So the date, as I indicated, they would have received 100 and something million. But
Okay.
when you go on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
you observe what is happening there, the work that they have delivered so far, clearly for 100 and something million, they should have been maybe at the roof stage. And clearly the project is failing. And as was warned, this is what happened when you give projects to inexperienced contractor. Additional to that, in the area of road construction, there are
Mm-hmm.
roads that were constructed in this region under the APNU AFC, under David Patterson, who,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I showed his engineers who are more experienced. I don't know what is happening now, but roads that are constructed in about a month time, they've
Yeah.
already deteriorated. If you pass by the Watuka guest house, there was a road that was completed just about 12 months ago, and it started to deteriorate just about 3 months after. So it's one thing for officials to boast of X amount being done on a road, but
Mm-hmm.
that road becomes quickly compromised. The integrity of the structure fails. And we have pointed out to them over and over, time and time again, that one, Region 10, we live in a hilly sand and clay region. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot construct roads without putting in drains. And so this year, while we would have been able to receive about 5 roads that will be built um, for the 2023 on the capital, they have only allocated resources 36 million for 3 drains. So the people in Amelia's ward, the people in Wizra,
Mm-hmm.
these roads that you're going to be seeing being built, there will be no drains so that the water can run off. We moved the policy at the RDC that one, roads, you must continue to build them with asphalt. That was done under the APNU AFC. We know that this government, prior to them getting into power, was a lot of chip seal roads, and that you seal the roads and have drainage, provisions for drainage where feasible, so that the water can run off and the life of the road can be extended. Clearly, with the allocation of just 36 million, which can only construct 3 drains in this entire
Wow.
region, this government is not interested in genuinely developing Region 10 infrastructure.
I mean, what you're explaining there, particularly with the roads and that kind of thing, I think every single Guyanese who traverse this country and are seeing roads being built right now can attest to the fact that roads are not lasting. You see a road go down, and within a couple of weeks, you can bet that there will be something happening on that road to indicate that that road was not built properly. I saw a road recently done, which was built basically, um, it was built today, and 2 days later, there was a big hole in it. We saw that as well on the East Bank, it's south to the Eccles area where they did that new road, and then they built a bypass to get into the Providence area. Those roads are already in disarray,
So,
and it isn't 6 months
so
since they have been built.
one has to ask the question: how come roads were standing up under David Patterson, but all the
Mhm,
roads are failing now? One,
mhm,
experienced contractors, they're cutting corners, um,
mhm,
the incorrect temperature when the asphalt is being laid, poor drainage.
mhm.
Many of our public officials maybe are compromised, looking the other way and allowing
Yeah.
contractors to get away with doing substandard work.
Or
Um,
maybe they're not allowed to, because I think for me, I want to make this point here, and I don't know if you agree with me, but one of the major things I think we're seeing here, if the government decides to give contracts to persons who are their friends, families, and favorites, as an engineer sitting in there, you know you can't interfere with that because you fear losing your jobs. And I think these are some of the things that are contributing to what we're seeing. I don't know what you're seeing in your region in that regard.
Well, we have seen that, and it could be a clear case of that. Maybe that is indeed what is happening. We see how many of the staff are forced to turn up to events. Many of you saw while they would have advertised Christianburg, and they would have told some of their supporters they don't have many. So when the time came for the march route to go to Christianburg, you had a dog, 3 tents, and about 2 persons who were sympathetic to their cause there at Christianburg. And so they have been using many of the staff here at the RDC to do political work, to put on a blue T-shirt and participate in MOM.
Men on a mission.
If you look at many of the persons who are participating in it, they are policemen who are involved, many of the RDC staff, and the RDC resources are being used to do political work. But even when you thought that, all right, fine, we see officials going into Horstelling, and you see a senior citizen house and you build it over. But when you come to Linden, a senior citizen that a tree fell on her house in Victory Valley, there is no attention or no support that is given to those persons. And so clearly it's a case of that we have been explaining to our people: domination and control, discrimination in the allocation of resources, and the using people who are supposed to be professional people to do political work.
And even with what we're discussing, I see one of the viewers commenting here. The truth is, we are seeing such a heavy flow of new vehicles. We're seeing bigger equipments coming in because, this government, in their budget, their biggest budget ever, the majority of those funds go to infrastructure. So when you are building roads and you're bringing in heavy duty equipment to carry out all these things, you see these big buildings going up at the side of the roads, etc. And then you're bringing them on this very road, you're having these issues, and as if there is nothing, there is no, what I will say, common sense or planning in what we are seeing happening. And, in Linden particularly, we know a lot of the heavy duty vehicles go through Linden. Everybody goes into the interior to do all the different types of activities that deal with getting minerals, resources, etc. And they come out. We even saw, I think it was this week, a lumber truck, and I wanted to raise that too. What is happening with the checks and balances at the Guyana Forestry Commission, where we saw a lumber truck was passing and that wood flying out on the bus, and thank God nobody was really injured or killed in that incident. What's happening there?
Well, clearly we have seen the government is more reactive rather than proactive. Measures and policies that should have been put in place to ensure the safety of our people. We have seen a deviation from that, and many of the things that we are experiencing now is because of a clear indication of the government's not willing to take sensible recommendations and act on it. To continue to, it's unfortunate that we have to live under these circumstances, but these are all things that we spoke of even at the regional level. Ensuring that there are systems in place, that traffic officers are on the highway monitoring these lumber trucks. I'm just happy that no one got hurt in that incident the other day. But there are other cases where those trucks came rolling back down hills.
Wow.
And we have yet to see that heavy presence of police on the road, and several other instances where our people, their very livelihood is put at risk and their life. And it's unfortunate. You know, without oil, we had it under control. The coalition would have issued over 13,000 tax to those who were involved in logging at IQ and other places. I was doing a research and I would have seen that only close to 3,000 was issued since 2020 by this government. And so when it comes to those, even in the mining and other areas, you do a comparative analysis and you can easily see which administration was genuinely concerned about your welfare, whether it was in forestry, whether it was in the highway and works being done in infrastructure, whether it's in healthcare. I would have made mention that we created jobs. We created in every sector. We had the Bertram Collins College of the public service, where young people 84 were employed. This government closed it down. We created jobs in the patient care assistant program. Many of you saw Pickett Rudy Small, who was at the Linden Hospital Complex until he was forced to resign. That today, close to 100 nurses have left Linden, left Region 10, and are now working in the UK. 30 doctors have either asked to be reassigned or have resigned, to the fact where we have to now turn to the Cubans, and they now have Cuban doctors that we have to bring in. And there are several instances where our people are not comfortable, we're not safe, the region feels targeted strategically and intentionally. Our nursing school was closed down, regions 1 to 9 nursing continues, and only region 10. This government would have closed our nursing school, and many of the young people who would have purchased their medical books and wanted to get involved in the health profession were denied. There are cases right now under the APNU AFC, close to 800 persons, benefited from public assistance. This government came to Linden, put a board in place. All members of the board were of one ethnicity in a community that is predominantly Afro-Guyanese. All 8 members of the board were of Indo-Guyanese ancestry, and what they were doing is removing people from the public assistance program. Persons who suffered stroke, persons who lost limb, persons with disability, senior citizens. Every day we are getting reports that new people are being removed from the public assistance program. Yet we have these people saying that they love Region 10. I say, show us, and we don't desire, because we believe we have given an opportunity and we have not benefited in any way. I ask for them to show one capital project. I can point to the many that occurred under the APNU AFC. We decentralized services. The passport office was built at Retrieve. Magistrate court built at Linden and at Kokwani. And there's several others. A dormitory was built at LTI for our students coming from the Berbice River. Why has this government failed to complete all of those projects that were initiated by the APNU AFC? But at the same time, you cannot identify one capital project that has happened over the past 3 years here in Region 10. Not one. All of the projects that are being executed right now are projects that were started under the APNU AFC government. And so I think it's time that the people of Region 10 and the wider, all the other regions in the country and the whole, that they are privy to this information.
And, it is clearly, when you listen to what is happening in Linden and also other areas in the country, you talk about the public assistance issue. It is really becoming a very sore issue, because every day now you're getting calls and complaints that people are just being taken off of public assistance just anyhow. And they're only coming from certain areas, if I may say. Go ahead.
What is most unfortunate is that I believe when you're given the opportunity to serve, whether you're installed or you're elected, and you meet with the people who can't help themselves, the most vulnerable group, and you see it fitting to just remove people without any clear plan of transition for these people, whether getting access to loans, even if you wanted to empower them through the Linden Enterprise Network by giving them a small business. They has emasculated that entire operation there and taken away our people's inability to even work for themselves by refusing to fund the Linden Enterprise Network. Under the coalition government, Len received 150 plus million, and we were able to set up a revolving fund where many persons, their businesses took off. This government was given a economy which was growing at about 4 to 5% at the time in 2020. The economic foundation was laid. You have access to the oil resources. We didn't. Why is it that so many people who are on public assistance, the most vulnerable people, move without any clear plan of transition for these people, as I mentioned? And it is unfortunate. And that is the reality of what is happening in the regions that are dominated by the APNU AFC. The cash grant distribution was the same. In communities that support the APNU AFC, when they came to people's home, you have to show title, ownership, you have to show ID, you have to show this, you have to show that. And I'm sure in Region 6 and Region 3.
In other places, no, it didn't happen.
Exactly, right? And so people oftentimes, you have to keep reinforcing this message that is why we continue to say that our region feels targeted, that we are not given equitable distribution of the nation's wealth, and that it is just for the top 1%, the friends, family, and favorites.
I see a lot of comments are coming in now, and I noted on the same public assistance issue, someone said there that in the last 3 months, they haven't received the public assistance book there in Linden. And I actually got that complaint right here in Georgetown only a week or so ago that it may be something that is across the board, that nobody has received those books, so they haven't gotten for January, February, and they aren't going to get at least yet for March.
So let me speak to that. Tell you what we found. On the APNU AFC, every month, this is specific to the Berbice River, like it would happen in any other area. Senior citizens receive their monies every month. When this government took over, what they started to do was pay our senior citizens every 6 months. So there were senior citizens who had not received their monies January, February, March, April, May, June. And then an officer would run in July and pay for the 6 months. Then
without notification.
Yeah, then that person had to wait again until December. For that. There are people who are calling from Kokwani to say that they have not received their pension book. This is the most vulnerable group of people. The Berbice River, a community called Friendship, an 84-year-old man, did not receive from January to July at the time. We were in the Berbice River in July. And the man said to them, he pleaded with them, he said, I didn't get the pension book. Can you give me the one-half cash grant that you get distributing, the 25,000 or 28,000 or how much of it was? And they refused to give the man, an 84-year-old man. And when I came out from the Berbice River, I took the documents to the department. And then when I thought that they were going to give him from January to July, the book came with the leaflets from July to December printed. So 6 months were wiped out completely.
Wow.
A 4-year-old man's pension. Now, where did that money go?
Yeah.
Right? And that is happening. That is only some areas. At one point, senior citizens complained that the officers, when they visit the Berbice River, they sat in the boat and they expect that our senior citizens, I say to them, to care for those who once cared for us should be one of the highest honors. You will get old too.
Yeah.
But senior citizens were forced to navigate down those boat landings because officers, young people who were taking in, officers who sat in the boat and expect these people, senior citizens, to go down the landing, and if they're moving too slow, they drove away.
Wow.
That is what we were experiencing here in Region 10. It is unfortunate and sad.
Like I said in the starting, this time it just goes so quickly. We're basically out of time, but you raised some major points and, giving comparison, and we must continue to enlighten the public in what is happening in these areas. We must educate our population and those looking in on the circumstances being faced by Guyanese, and point out the fact that Guyanese are facing serious discrimination at this given time because of this government. And it almost looks like and appears, they literally do not care at this time what they do, what they say, how they operate, as they still talk about one Guyana. And the one Guyana is more and more becoming as if you're talking about one set of people when they say one Guyana. I want to give you the opportunity. I mean, we covered quite a lot of issues today, but just before I close, because we're basically out of time, give you the opportunity to say to our viewers any other thing that you didn't get to say or you want to re-emphasize as we close this program.
Well, I want to let the people of Region 10 know that we will continue to make representation for them. We will continue to keep them informed. We continue to educate them. We want to ensure that together we articulate a vision, one that will ensure that all our people are involved, that they too can play a pivotal role, whether it is our senior citizens, our young people, our athletes. We are going to be representing all the people of Region 10. We have seen recently a re-emergence of violence in our region, division, political patronage, and the instilling of fear in the population. And that is being done in an attempt for the administration of the day to maintain some form of control, domination and control. We've seen the emergence of death squads, and we're returning to a place where corruption is the order of day at all levels. And so what we have now on us, especially among our young people, the use of drugs. I just saw where somebody got shot, and the person with the name that we have received that was involved is somebody that is politically aligned to the governing party. And so what we're experiencing right now is a hopeless population among our youth. Because of this increase in criminal activity. And how could you just look and see somebody there and take out a firearm and shoot them in the head? And we have to do better. But we will continue, of course, to represent our people and ensure that we articulate a vision that will ensure and encourage that the people at the grassroots level are connected to their elected officials and that we continue to represent them at all levels. Thank you.
I want to thank you once again for coming on the program and, always articulating well for your region and, standing up whenever it is necessary. And I want to remind our viewers and our people generally in Guyana, as our officials and our like the regional chairman, your opposition MPs and all these persons are out there representing and working, we as citizens of this country also have a responsibility to call the government of the day out, no matter who they are, and hold them accountable for the things that are done. We as a people, we have to stand up and back our officials who are backing us in these efforts. And that's the only way we will be able to see, this country really moving forward. Because if we sit down and we continuously accept what is being meted out to us currently, we will be going absolutely nowhere as a country other than downward, where we are supposed to be, a flourishing, happy, wonderful country with our new revenue gains and all these things. But we as a people, we have to hold our officials accountable in this time. I want to thank you for joining Facing the Nation again today. And, I'm basically out of time. I want to tell our viewers about we're having at the People's National Congress Reform a barbecue come Easter Day. You will be seeing more of that, more videos, flyers, and reminders in regard to this this activity coming up, but I want to give you, a heads up. Note that, Easter is coming, and the People's National Congress Reform has something planned, where you'll be able to bring out your children. You'll have your, the kite flying competition. Children will be able to have face painting, bouncy castle, just have a time with the family where you can sit, relax, enjoy the space to fly your kites, and let us come together and, really celebrate, the season as we enter into the Easter season. I want to thank our viewers once again for joining us today. Do join us next week, same time, 12:30 to 1:30, Facing the Nation on Channel 6 and all our social media platforms. Thank you once again for joining. Have a blessed day.
'Cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice bread, not one cry, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo. Take time on night, though we may criticize it. This is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right, so we ain't giving up no more. We ain't giving up. We ain't